The wicked in contrast to God's mercy is the title, or pericope, and then the Hebrew introduction. To the chief musician or the temple choir director, a psalm in italics, that's kind of implied or added. It just says in Hebrew, of David, the servant of Yahweh. It's blank by David, Verse 36. Chapter 36, 1. An oracle within my heart concerning the transgression of the wicked. There is no fear of God before his eyes. What's an oracle?
Future telling.
Yes, it's a prophecy. It's what were other names for the old time prophets? Like seers in the Old Testament before.
Seers, craftsmen.
I don't know about craftsmen, but they were seers or oracles. In fact, there's a verse that says, so and so was a prophet, but in previous days they called them seers.
Weren't there also objects that were oracles that David used?
Not that David used that I know of. No,
Like
objects. Well, that was a priestly thing. The
I thought there was
Urim and the Thummim.
something he consulted. He takes up the what is?
Well,
there were oracles in ancient Greece, like the Eleusinian mysteries, and
this.
But this
Yeah,
is a long
Balaam
time
takes
before.
up an oracle. It says he takes up his
Oracle
oracle
Delphi?
and then starts prophesying.
I don't know that it's an object with him, but I want to stick to this text and notice what it says. An oracle or a prophecy or a message. I looked up the Hebrew word. It means, it's usually translated declare. So it's a declaration that God put in his heart.
Yeah.
It's not a physical object. Okay, it's not a talisman or something, or a necklace or an idol or anything like that.
That would be a fetish.
Yeah, an oracle within my heart concerning the transgression or sin of the wicked. There is no fear of God before his eyes. So notice it's important to pay attention to the genders and the pronouns, whether they're singular or plural, whether they're masculine or feminine. And that helps us understand this, and you can't even tell that in gender-neutral translations like the NIV. Go ahead.
Trying to figure out. It's in here, an oracle. But the transgression of the wicked saith within my heart. Is that where it says oracle in yours?
Yeah, I believe the saith is what they're translating from the word for oracle, or like I said, it's the Hebrew word declare.
Okay.
It means like a declaration. So it's a message within his heart from God. And I know some translations do this verse quite a bit differently, quite a bit of variance in it, but that's why. Concerning the transgression of the wicked, there is no fear of God before his eyes. We've talked about, there was a whole, like half a psalm. What?
Is he talking about Saul here?
He could very well be talking about Saul.
He's saying one in his eyes.
Yeah,
Or
it's singular masculine. So when it said in the previous line, the transgression of the wicked, it's the transgression of the wicked one, not the wicked ones, plural, or wicked people. It's the wicked one, because there's no fear of God before his eyes. Now, the gender-neutral translations would probably say they. Now, they being used as a singular or a plural, that's crazy and confusing. You have no idea what this is talking about, if it's wicked one or wicked ones. And it is important, it is doctrinally critical in many passages to understand that, to pay attention to. It just kind of throws grammatical agreement out the window when you do that kind of stuff, and it makes reading older documents undecipherable when you think of they as being singular. It's not. It never is in real Bibles, older Bibles. There's the thee and thou, the ones that start with a T in the King James are singular. thee, thou, thine. That's the T's are always singular,
That's
and
the less formal version of you.
and you, ye, yours. Those are always plural in the Old King James. Verse 2, for he flatters, oh yeah, like Paul was saying, he could be thinking of Saul, but I see sometimes it seems like it's pointing ahead to Antichrist or Satan too. Seems like we'll see that in some places. Verse 2, for he flatters himself in his own eyes when he finds out his iniquity and when he hates. So, and there's another way that these can be taken sometimes. Sometimes the one, I mean, you might think, oh, it's just one man, it's just like Saul or the Antichrist or Satan. But sometimes, I mean, it is singular, it is one man, but sometimes it is used in a generic way like, you know, a wicked man is like this, but a righteous man is like that. It's kind of any man who's like this, not necessarily a specific one.
It does seem like he has one person in mind.
That's possible. I'm just putting out all three ways this type of thing could be taken. And there is, you're right, there is one true interpretation of every passage, the original intended meaning. And sometimes it's very clear, especially when the Psalms are quoted and explained in the New Testament. Like this one's talking about Jesus Christ and his future reign in the kingdom. Hebrews 2 quoting Psalm 8, it's like, yeah, I'm very dogmatic when I teach that. I don't say, well, there's three different opinions on this and give the liberal spin. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to speak as the oracle of God.
Or when Jesus said this was speaking about me.
Right. And yeah, and he himself said that basically the Old Testament is about me on the Emmaus Road, and he specifically mentions the Psalms. Verse 3, the words of his mouth are wickedness and deceit. He has ceased to be wise and to do good, for he devises wickedness on his bed. So he can't sleep the sleep of the righteous in bed. Why? Because he's making plans to harm people, to rob people, to discredit people's good name. He sets himself in a way that is not good. He does not abhor evil. So he has a path that he's planned for himself that's not good, that's not righteous, and he doesn't hate evil. That's part of his plans, is to do evil. He doesn't reject it. That's what abhor means.
I find it interesting. He says he has ceased to be wise and to do good. Well, that would imply that at one point he was wise and he did try to be good. And that's what I was just thinking.
Well, maybe if he is thinking of Saul, you know, Saul probably had a lot of great training in the Hebrew scriptures and in morality, maybe by priests, Levitical priests, and now it seems like he's abandoned that, and he wants to kill the Lord's anointed. That's pretty much like killing the Messiah, because if you kill David, guess who's not coming to die on the cross? Jesus Christ. So yeah, he's got an Antichrist spirit. In fact, it says that an evil spirit would come upon Saul, and that's when he would try and kill David, even though David was the only cure for that, because David would come and play beautiful, I almost said Christian music, but godly hymns on his harp, and that would soothe Saul, and the demon would leave. The evil spirit would leave him.
So, Chad, I've always been kind of curious, because in the Old King James, at least, it says an evil spirit from the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Is it basically just saying God allowed an evil spirit? Or?
Well, first of all, there's things that are hard to understand, like we're just reading Jude, and it talks about people who are predetermined for hell, basically, multiple verses on it, which really doesn't fit with most people's theology. But first of all, don't assume when we look at a passage, oh, we've got to figure out a way to explain this away because it doesn't sound good.
First, we have to go to the original language.
it was an evil spirit from the Lord. And how exactly that happened, well, it makes me think of Job. What was it? It said the sons of God were gathered before the Lord. Among them was Satan. God asked them, holds them accountable. What have you guys been up to? And Satan's, roaming to and fro, seeking whom I may devour on the earth, that type of thing, Nothing but good. The way is not good.
The two kings, one of Judah, and they come together and they ask, there's a bunch of prophets prophesying, and they say, well, let's get this other prophet. And what was his name? Jezebel's husband. Ahab. And he's just like, that guy never says anything good to me. He's always negative.
Yeah.
The guy prophesies about...
He only prophesies negative, but he was the one true prophet of the Lord.
Yeah. And he says basically that there was a spirit that God basically asks all these spirits, who's willing to go down and deceive all the prophets of Israel?
To be... Right. That's what I was trying to think of. Maybe it wasn't Job. I mean, there was a gathering of the angels in Job, and Satan was among them. But you're right. That's what I was trying to think of. There's a passage where God basically asked the angels, hey, I can't remember. I want something to be done with this false prophet.
Well, it was
or
like
what
all
was
the
it?
other prophets in Israel were prophesying good things if Israel and Judah come in and do battle together.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one prophet said, who never said anything good, was well, actually, you're gonna die, and God basically asked a spirit to go and deceive all these other prophets so that you would go and do it.
Well, it wasn't exactly God asking a spirit to go deceive. I can't remember. We'd have to look at the passage, but he was basically asking the angels, hey, what do you want to do? This is what I want to happen. And one of the angels, it might be a fallen angel. They're not all good angels. They're not all elect angels, but one of them volunteers, hey, I'll go be a lying spirit in his ear. And God says, go do what you've said. Go ahead. And because it fit within his will, God works all things together for good to those who love him, to those who are called according to his purpose. Even, all the sinful things that are going on in the world ultimately are for God's glory. Like when he judges sinfulness, it will glorify him because it proves he is a just and righteous God. Just as much as showing grace to us who don't deserve it any more than the condemned do, that glorifies him too, but it shows something different. It shows he's a gracious, forgiving, loving God. He has to do both things. God can't save everyone. He only saves the elect. I know that's a hard saying to accept, but it's pretty clear in the scriptures over and over, especially Ephesians 1, that he chose us before the foundation of the world. And then Christ redeemed us, and then the Holy Spirit sealed us. So let's get back to our passage.
On verse 5.
Psalm 36:5. Your mercy, O Yahweh, is in the heavens. Your faithfulness reaches to the clouds. Your righteousness is like the great mountains. Your judgments are a great deep. In other words, they're like the ocean or a bottomless pit. O Yahweh, you preserve man and beast. So David's breaking out in praise. He's trying to express how great and vast the righteousness and mercy of God is. And he's just using the biggest examples he can. The heavens, the oceans, it's like all these things. It's just too big to comprehend.
It's like the flip of a switch. He goes from one topic to this other topic.
Well, I don't think it's such a huge leap when you realize that God judging the wicked, that glorifies himself. And so David saying, judge the wicked, and then he starts glorifying God because of what he's going to do. And
I think it's he uses contrast.
And he is switching. He is kind of switching from the wicked to the righteous. He does the back and forth thing. oh, and then he says, oh, Yahweh, you preserve man and beast. And he's probably thinking, since you do that, preserve me too, Lord. Please save me. I just tapped on the mic, so that'll probably sound weird on the recording. Verse 7, how precious, like when they tap on the microphone, is this thing on?
Audience hair stands on.
Verse 7, how precious is your loving kindness, O God. And this is probably the word it usually is in Hebrew for covenant faithfulness. It's translated various ways, but how precious is your loving kindness or covenant faithfulness, O God. Speaking of, God's keeping his promises and agreements with Israel, his chosen people. Therefore, the children of men put their trust under the shadow of your wings. So this is kind of like maybe Jesus was thinking of this when he said, I think he was weeping, and he said, oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how I have longed to gather you under my wings like a mother hen gathers her chicks and protects them and loves them. But you would not have it. Instead, you killed all the prophets and priests I sent to you. You just killed all the messengers of God. But this is what God wants to do. He wants people to put their trust in him, which is like hiding, like a chick hiding under the wings of her mother. Why do they do that? Because they trust her to take care of them, to protect them, to nurture them. They know it's safe there. Verse 8, they are abundantly satisfied with the fullness of your house. Your house, usually speaking of the temple. They are abundantly satisfied with the fullness of your house, and you give them drink from the river of your pleasures. So this seems like some sort of metaphor, but it reminds me of Revelation. At the very end of Revelation, it talks about this fountain of life, and it's saying, all who will come and drink freely of it, and I will give you life eternal. And I think it's the same type of thing that Jesus promised the woman at the well. He said, woman, draw me some water. And she, and he tells her that if she would ask of him, he would give her water so she would never thirst again. And she's like, oh yeah, I'd like some of that kind of water. She was taking it a little too literally. So I don't have to drag myself to this well all the time and carry a big pot on my head. And you give them drink from the river of your pleasures. I also think of when Christ is in Messiah's temple, the temple that he builds, and there's a stream that comes out from under the throne, and it starts out, foot deep, and then ankle deep, and then knee deep. Then it's a roaring river. It just gets bigger and bigger, and it brings life to the Dead Sea, and the tree of life is on either side of it. And it says the leaves that fall into it are taken from this river of life coming out of the throne of Christ. And it says that the leaves that fall in there and are carried in, I think it's two directions, probably to the Mediterranean as well. It says, they're for the healing of the nations. Verse 9, for with you is the fountain of life. In your light, we see light. So God is the source of life. He is the source of truth and enlightenment. Verse 10, oh, continue your loving kindness, your covenant faithfulness to those who know you. Is it to everyone? No, just to those who know you. And your righteousness to the upright in heart, to those who know God and who are upright in heart. Verse 11, let not the foot of pride come against me, and let not the hand of the wicked drive me away. See, this is another one of those David's been doing it a lot, but a parallelism. He's repeating a similar idea twice and maybe expanding on it a little bit. Verse 11, let not the foot of pride, let not the hand of the wicked come against me, drive me away. See how it's repeating the same idea twice? It makes it self-interpreting, self-defining.
You know, it almost brings me to tears because David sees how other people have failed around him. And I feel like in the Psalms, he tries to ask God that he will not have those failings. Even though he did fail, he's still confessing where he has failed and not wanting to go deeper. And it's very beautiful.
Verse 12, there the workers of iniquity have fallen. They have been cast down and are not able, did I skip something? And not able to rise. No, okay. So, yeah, this sounds very negative about what David wants God to put down these workers of iniquity who have bad, evil plans against him, evil plans for him. And actually, we've seen Jesus praying similar things when he was on the cross back in Psalm 22, talking about these bulls and these lions surrounding him, wanting to pierce him and kill him and making false accusations against him. And he's like, deliver my only unique, precious soul from their hands, Lord. Raise me from the dead, basically. Justify me. I'm being accused of all these crimes falsely.